Hello, yes, a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening to you, however you may be listening and wherever you may be listening. This is the latest edition of the Bolden Sports Media NFL podcast coming to you. It feels weird to sort of introduce it in any way that way, but I usually say it's coming to you before or coming to you after, but there's really nothing really to say that we're coming to you after or really before. I mean, we do have the combine in a couple of weeks, but just this dead period of the NFL off season, it kind of feels weird to introduce it in any other way. But oh well, I just introduced it, so we'll just have to make do with that, I suppose. Yeah, it's as I say, it's the off season. It's a bit of a quiet time, and as a result, this is going to be a slightly shorter podcast than you are used to. But we'll still a couple of topics that I want to get into in some form of depth. So we'll wait and see exactly what we can get into. But before we get into that, we need to get into the admin, which is as simple as me once again thanking you for joining us. And don't forget that if you are new, if you have stumbled across us, that you can like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. And don't forget, you can also reach out to us on our various social medias. We are at Baldwin Sports Media on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and then on X, Twitter, whichever you decide to call it, we are at MRB Sports Media. So feel free to give us a shout out, give us a listen, and comment whatever it is you need to do on those relevant platforms. And as always, if you are a returning listener, then as always, thank you very much for continuing to make this a small part, even if it's just the minutest part, just making us a small part of your week. Right. And with that, we need to get on with the show. And the first topic this week concerns the TV deals, which news that has started to emerge over the past couple of days. Most prominently, rather, covered by Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, basically saying that Netflix want to get their hands on one of the Sunday packages. Um, Now, when he says the Sunday packages, the news coming out is it's going to be one of the CBS or Fox afternoon packages. And I think that's pretty important to point out because I feel I'm okay with Netflix getting into the game. In fact, I'm okay with any and all sort of broadcasters deciding that they want to get into broadcasting. The more the merrier. The more money that can get into it, the more the players get paid, and there's less of a chance of your favorite player leaving the team because they're not getting underpaid because they're going to get the money from the team. So the more the merrier, as I say. However, I think when it comes to streaming and a platform like Netflix, I would be worried if they are coming after as I say, the Sunday afternoon package, which is what is being reported. Because I'm okay with them taking one of the standalone game packages, whether it be Monday Night Football. I know that's an ESPN institution, but be it Monday Night Football, be it Sunday Night Football, be it, as Mike Florio has hinted at, be it the international window, which we are going to be getting, a whole bunch of them this season. It was announced this week that the Chargers are going to be opening up in week one in the Brazil game, which I do feel is going to be a tradition moving forward, that you have the opening Thursday night game and then there's the Brazil game on the second day on the Friday. I think that's good. That's going to continue. But the Chargers will open up in week one in Brazil. You have the Jets and the Browns each having one game in London at the Spurs Stadium. So that's three, up to three in total. A fourth with the game in London with the Jacksonville Jaguars having their usual game at Wembley. The Colts are in Berlin. The Dolphins are in Madrid. The Steelers are in Dublin. And then news coming in 2026 that the Los Angeles Rams are going to be hosting a game in Melbourne. So, that's kind of that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games this season, 8 moving forward. One game a week. You can do the maths. I think going for an international package, I think would be okay, because my issue with Netflix going after a Sunday afternoon thing is I don't want to have to keep flicking between services. This is a point that Bill Maher brings up on his show on Real Time. He's brought it up, and it was something I didn't really notice until he brought it up. But with streaming and the way it's done now, it's difficult to flick between games. Because I don't know about you, for instance, but I have a Roku TV, and I stream my games via Fubo. This isn't product placement. This is just me explaining my situation. They don't have, I suppose, what used to be the case in the days of cable, a last channel button where you can just press one button and you're instantly taken to the last thing. You've actually got to, at least again on my service, Fubo, you got to scroll down, go to the guide, and then press the next game it's not exactly summiting Mount Everest, but it's not a straightforward deal of flicking between games. You have to go through you have to go through those steps. Now, picture that Netflix got the CBS games, for instance. You've got to go to Netflix. You've got to log in, which sometimes can take a bit of a while, especially if given the Netflix situation, you're sharing one too many passwords. You've got to type it in every single time, or maybe in what happens with computers and TVs, it somehow forgets your password, or you're logged out or whatever. So you've got to type your password back in. Then you got to go again, scroll to the game, press OK, and then move on. And then if you want to flick back to the other game, you got to go through the same process again. It just seems a little bit of a hassle to do. Again, it's not difficult, but it's just slightly annoying to have to do on a Sunday afternoon game, where again, if your team is playing and maybe it's a bit of a blowout, you just want to flick back to the other game. No, just flick back and forth to see what else is going on. It's a bit of a hassle, so I can't see that being. I don't see that being an agreement unless Netflix goes on to a thing and maybe with the CBS games they will stream all of them. Maybe that is an argument where again they get all the AFC games, all the games that would be on CBS, and then you're able to just flick within Netflix to at least get just the AFC games, or if it's Fox, just the NFC games, for instance. So that's the only way I can see it working. I don't see it working. I don't see it being agreed to, if I'm being honest, if they are going for a Sunday afternoon, one of these Sunday afternoon packages. Now, like I said, if they want to bid for one of the other independent games, go for it. Create a deal, like they did this year or last year rather, with the Christmas games. Give them the package that they will just deal with those games, and they can just deal with those games. Give them the international package. I think that's gonna work it out. I don't know exactly how the revenue works, but I imagine the NFL, if the NFL network is broadcast, which I know they do for some of the international games, if they are doing the international games, how much money are they really getting if it's internally with them? If you get what I'm saying. But if you get an external source, then you may be able to generate a little bit more revenue, and maybe even put up a bidding war with another one of the partners. Maybe NBC instead. For Sunday night, maybe they say, nah, as well as our Sunday night thing, we want one of the international games, and we'll pay a little bit extra for it. There could be ways. There could be ways around that. So I think it's good to have Netflix in the discussion, but I think there should be somewhat of a limit in what they can again in what they decide to go after. I think it makes sense for them to have standalone games. I don't want them going after the Sunday afternoon games. I think the NFL has sort of reached the point where I'm not saying if it isn't broke, don't fix it, but on the broadcasting side, I don't think much really needs to be tweaked that extensively. Again, if you want to make it to again, if Amazon Prime wants to take the international games and give Netflix the Thursday night game, go for it. That's not a major tweak. Nothing drastically changes. It's not as if Netflix saying we're going to come in and we're going to play a game on Tuesday every week. That would be a major change. But just taking over a package like that, I think that's pretty fair, and I think that's pretty understandable and fine. I think most people could get on board with that. So that's where I think we're going to end up going. I don't see them coming up with the afternoon package. I think that is where they're eventually going to end up, and I think in the overhaul, I think it will be a good thing. Right, and with that, we move on to the second and penultimate topic, because as I said, this is a short podcast, and one of my favorite subjects, and it's quarterbacks. Now, I can't remember who coined the term misinformation season, but that is exactly what this is around the NFL. You are going to hear a ton of stuff and a ton of rumors and a ton of insider sources, and some of them will be right, some of them will be wrong. You just got to believe what you want to believe and whatever. But obviously, the main subject this offseason is going to be the quarterback position, because there is a lot of, there is every season, but I don't know why, but this offseason seems like one of the more influx seasons that we've recently seen. You've got the Rams going after or looking to trade Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy. What's going to happen with his contract? Is he going to get his before he goes into the final deal? Aaron Rodgers leaving the Jets. Is he going to be going anywhere? Is he going to retire? Who's going to pick him up? What do the Vikings do with Sam Darnold? What do the Steelers do with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? Who are the Raiders going to go after? Are the New Orleans Saints going to do anything? And who's going to be drafting for the future? The Tennessee Titans have the number one pick. Do they go after a quarterback like Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, or do they trade the pick away? Because depending on who you believe, this isn't really the best quarterback class. So is this really a bad year to be needing a quarterback? What did the New York Giants do? There are just a bunch of questions going around, and really, it's quite difficult to narrow it down to one talking point. But the one that has been sort of not necessarily bugging me, but the one that's been in the back of my mind has been the situation surrounding the quarterbacks coming out of this year's draft. Because now, as I said, there are some that believe that this is not the best year to go and get a quarterback, because there are a bunch of questions surrounding, a bunch of the players. This isn't like previous years where we can instantly go and say this quarterback is far and away number one, no question about it. No, this isn't like Trevor Lawrence. This isn't like Andrew Luck. This isn't, it's not even like the class of 2018, I want to say, or was it 2017? The year that it was Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen was in there. It was Lamar Jackson was taken at the end. That draft class. Sam Darnold was in there. Of course, he got taken by the Jets. It's not like there where there's a bunch of arguably, they all could have got number one discussion. Really, this is a draft where it's who doesn't want to go number one, or how easily can you talk yourself out of picking someone at the number one spot, or taking a quarterback at the number one spot. And honestly, if I am one of the teams, I'm taking a punt on this season. I think when the discussion and when the aura around these quarterbacks is that there are a lot of questions, and this isn't a good quarterback draft. The fact that I'll just pull up one. The first mock draft that I looked up had Abdul Carter, the edge from Penn State, going to the Tennessee Titans, and then this is from Sports Illustrated. The Cleveland Browns taking Travis Hunter, the wide receiver / cornerback from Colorado. At number two, the fact that both those teams need quarterbacks, and the most important position in the game, and both, again, it's just one draft, but even when one prestigious outlet says the teams that need a quarterback should not take a quarterback with the number one pick in the draft, that tells you that this is not a good class for quarterbacks. In fact, we'll just go down. They do have Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, going number 3 to the New York Giants. But even then, I'd imagine there's an element of, is he someone you can plug and play right away, like a CJ Stroud, like a Caleb Williams, from the past couple of drafts, or is he someone that you need to sit and let him develop? I think you sit and let him develop. Bring in a veteran somewhere. But that just tells you, is there really the talent available? So if I am the Titans, if I am one of these teams, I'm calling someone's bluff. I'm saying, right, if you think that these quarterbacks are so good, you don't want to trade down to like number 10, because you still want to give yourself a chance to pick one of these great positional players, like like Travis Hunter, who I think is going to be incredible in the program, like Abdul Carter, who's going to be great. Just going down, look at the Mason Graham, I think that is a great D tackle out of Michigan. There's a whole bunch of good players. You want to be around that thing, but again, call someone's bluff. Just say, right, you want a quarterback so badly in this bad class that no one can really establish there's a or can guarantee there's a franchise quarterback in this class. Go do it. Take it. We'll get your number one pick. We'll get next year's number one pick when there's a good quarterback class, and we'll go get him next year. I think if I am one of those teams down the bottom, I'm trading away this pick, and just saying, right, we'll try our luck elsewhere. I don't see the need in risking the future of the franchise with one of these guys. At least with some of the other players that have gone in recent years, like Caleb Williams, there was some doubt with the size, but there was enough there to make you believe in something. I don't know if the likes of Shador Sanders or Cam Ward offer that level of hype, that level of hope, if you would. Now, again, the combine comes up, and again, some teams will talk themselves out or talk themselves into going in and drafting them. And one big throw will make some GM be convinced that this guy is the future. But if I'm wondering the teams, they're just not for me. Let me know what you think. Again, that's just my thought. Let me know what you think. In the comments below, or reach out on our social media pages. Let me know what you think. Is this a good year to draft a quarterback, or do you just give it one big miss? So as I said, it's a short podcast because there's not really a lot of big, or at least a lot of news that I really want to talk about, or I'm smart enough to dive deep into knowledge in. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least finish off the show with my usual, fun or outside the NFL segment. And if you're a sports fan, the one bit of news that's been dominating the sports headlines this week, and that has been the Four Nations Face-Off. Now, I I watched some of it. I watched some of it. I watched all of the first game. I watched the last two periods of the USA Canada game. And honestly, I'm not the biggest hockey fan. I like it. I watch it. I watch the Penguins game, but I'm not at a level of fandom where I can just tune in and watch a random game on a Tuesday night and be entertained to know who the players are. But I have been gripped by the Four Nations face-off. And it's been fantastic. Whilst the other leagues, the complaints about the NBA All-Star game, about how boring it is and how they're trying to change it up every season, try and get the numbers up and everything. You've seen the numbers have exploded with the Four Nations face-off. And I think it's a good thing. I think rather than having these glorified exhibition games, give the players something to be competitive about. I don't know if it's something you can translate over into the NBA or or in other sports, but get national pride in there. Obviously, some of it is surrounding politics with the USA and Canada, but there was already a bit of a rivalry in there. I say a bit of a rivalry. It's one of the greatest rivalries in all of sport. I think the USA and Canada at ice hockey, but just fantastic. And I do think it is something that I think a lot of leagues in North America are going to look at and say, right, this is how we do it. Yeah, I don't know if the MLB All Star Game is gonna make too big a change to that, but when you see that, if you build it, they will come. If you give them something to fight for, they will do it. I think that's generally the great way. Four Nations face are absolutely brilliant as a replacement for the NHL All Star Game. I don't see them going back to the old format ever again. With skills competition and in a 3-on-3 where anyone barely makes a hit or anything. I don't see them going that way. This has been absolutely fantastic. I think it's going to bring a new audience to the game, and I can't speak highly enough about it. So Four Nations face off. The final is this Thursday, tomorrow night, tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. USA versus Canada, the rematch. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And again, hopefully, if you're not a hockey fan, it gets you into it because it is a great sport. But that is it for this show. As I said, it's a bit of a short one, but thank you very much for listening. And as always, if you liked it, maybe if you want to keep this short, then let me know. Let me know in the comments or reach out on our social medias. And if you are new, I'll give them to you again. They are at MRB Sports Media on Twitter rather, and we are at Baldwin Sports Media on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So feel free to reach out to us on there. We will hopefully be back next week. I'm not too sure what my schedule is, but life has thrown a lot at me recently, so hopefully I'll be able to find a little bit of a window in order to get some a podcast and some content out. So keep watching out on the channels, and hopefully we'll get some stuff out. There'll be plenty of big news to talk about. But until I speak to you next time, take care, and as always, stay safe.